Peace and blessings, y'all, in this corner boxing 24. Good evening, good evening. How's everyone doing this evening? Hope everybody's doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good on this side as always. God is great, God is good, and I can't complain. So I'm going to talk about this tonight, and, I'm not going to really deal with this anymore because anybody should know by now that when you're looking at the boxing channels, like myself, like the channel that I have, all I'm trying to do is give out the proper, good information, correct information. I'm not making stuff up, I'm not adding to them, and I'm not taking from. I deal with facts on my channel. Sometimes I go back to previous fights and previous videos and I get information. And that's coming, the information, when I relay it, it's not coming from In This Corner Boxing 24. It's not coming from me. It's not something that I made up. I'm relaying information that came from a fighter or a trainer. In particularly with this Bud Crawford, Errol Spence fight coming up, and people still not wanting to just deal with reality. And the reality is, this is going to be a tough fight for both fighters, but a tougher fight, I believe, a tougher fight based on the styles for Errol Spence Jr. Now, when you look at Aki TV and Blue Bud and Boxing Ego and all of these different channels, there's times that they make videos where they're opposing a certain fighter. It's nothing personal, but when you listen to certain channels and they're talking about how Canelo should be fighting Charlo, or he should be fighting Benavidez, and then they talking about that, and they getting on Canelo for not fighting him, same as I do. There's nothing wrong with that. Does that mean I'm pro the other fighter? It just means I'm pro boxing, and fair is fair. So when I'm talking about the fact that Bud Crawford is 39-0 with 30 knockouts, and he was undisputed at 140. Those are the facts. Now, you want to dig up, oh, who did he fight? Because Errol Spence said it, and then you jump on the bandwagon and say, well, Ndongo was not a good fighter, Julius Ndongo, who was a 440-pound champion. But what about the fighters that he fought leading up to that? And because he wasn't the greatest fighter, doesn't mean he wasn't a good fighter. He fought who was there. Just like Floyd Mayweather, some people can pick his record apart and say, well, who was Chavez? Or who was this fighter? Or who was Castillo? Some people don't know who Castillo was. But look at the fight that he gave Floyd. But you could pick his record apart and say, well, he didn't fight this one, or who was Angel Manfredi, or whatever, right? And say he didn't fight the best fighters. But at the end of the day, he still retired 50-0 with 27 knockouts. One of the greatest fighters of all time. So some of us, we pick at every little thing. I can pick Errol Spence's record apart just as well as I can look at Crawford's record. And if I want to be honest, I could say Crawford has fought the better competition. Now, when it comes to welterweight, they fought two of the same fighters. And like I said, Sean Porter fought Ugas and Danny Garcia and beat them before Errol Spence. Those are the facts. So you just can't get away with that. Why keep spending time on the fact that Errol Spence beat Kell Brook after Triple G? Is that a fact? That's a fact. After Triple G, 8 months after he was damaged. That's a fact. Why we got to keep even dealing with that? I'm not dealing with it anymore, honestly. Boxing is 24-hour news. So many different topics to talk about. So I'm going to keep it moving with that. Okay, it is what it is. If you like Errol Spence, ride with him. Okay? I'm a boxing fan. And let me just make this clear. It's not that I'm pro Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford is one of my favorite fighters. Floyd Mayweather is my favorite fighter. Okay? Crawford is one of my favorite fighters. My favorite fighter right now is Boots, Jaron Ennis. That's who I really like. That's who I favor. That I believe, in my opinion, is a tough fight. for Crawford and for Spence. That's my opinion, okay? Now, when it comes between Spence and Crawford, I believe Crawford has the edge. That's my opinion. You don't have to agree with it. But when I deal with the facts about him having a 48.7 power punch percentage at welterweight and the average of 37%, don't get mad at me. That's the facts. When Brian Custer said he had a 76% knockout ratio since he was been a welterweight, that's the facts. He said it, not me. When he says that he stopped everybody at welterweight since he's been a welterweight, he stopped every opponent he's faced, that's the facts. Jeff Horn, Kell Brook, Sean Porter, David Avanesyan, those are the facts. You can't argue with that, okay? That's not knocking Errol Spence. He's 28-0 with 22 knockouts, man. He's a beast. He's coming to fight. And I really commend him for talking about the money, the percentage of money that goes to the sanctioning bodies and having to pay for the belt and representing these different divisions. And at the end of the day, you putting your life, blood, sweat, and tears on the line to get those belts, to represent those belts. But what are they doing for the fighters? You got fighters that are retiring after making all this money with no money. No retirement plan, no retirement fund, no savings. So yeah, I commend him for bringing that up because that needs to be changed. But at the end of the day, man, we're talking about fighting. We're talking about styles. And it's my job with this channel to talk about the fundamentals of boxing, but also to talk about the favorites of a fighter and sometimes the negatives of a fighter. And when it comes to a fight like this, that's a super fight. Somebody got to win, somebody got to lose, but we got to deal with the styles of these two fighters, Crawford and Spence. And this is the last thing I'm going to talk about. People trying to harp on this breaking thing. Errol Spence said on July 29th, you're going to see why I'm breaking fighters. He's not talking about breaking them mentally. He's talking about breaking them physically. And in particularly, he's talking about what he did to Yordenis Ugas. Okay? That's what he's talking about. It's not a mental thing. He said physically. He's talking about physically because he did physical damage to Ugas. It wasn't mental. Okay? Mental comes in after what happened physically. You questioning yourself, can you still do it? But in that ring, it was a physical thing that he did. So the question is he breaking fighters? Well, let's look and see. He didn't break Sean Porter because Sean Porter gave him the toughest fight of his life, and he fought Bud Crawford after that. Kell Brook, pardon me, is still fighting, still looking for a fight, okay? He had 3 fights, 3 wins before he fought Bud Crawford, so he wasn't broken. Mikey Garcia fought after Errol Spence. He wasn't broken. He retired not because of Errol Spence. He retired for whatever personal reason, but he had a bad showing in that fight after Errol Spence. We already know he's not a natural 147-pounder anyway, and really not even a 140-pounder. He's a lightweight. So we're not going to contribute that to Errol Spence, are we? Absolutely not. Carlos Ocampo, who was an easy fight for Errol Spence, he's fighting Tim Tszyu, getting ready to fight Tim Tszyu on July 8th. Is that July 8th that they're fighting? No, pardon me. Not July 8th, but that fight is coming up. I know that. Pardon me. July 8th is Boots and Virgil Ortiz and Stanionis. But Tim Tszyu is fighting Carlos Ocampo, the same fighter that Errol Spence beat, okay, a few years ago. So he wasn't broken. So what fighter did he break? But Ugas, and Ugas is being talked about to fight Keith Thurman coming up. So that's the only fight he really could talk about that he really broke. And it wasn't mental, it was a physical thing because he broke his facial features, right? Whatever part that was, okay? Contributing, connected to his eye. So Did he do that to Kell Brook? Yes, he did. But Triple G did it first. So I'm just saying, man, out of all of these breaking comments, man, let's just keep it real, man. He's not breaking nobody. And I don't believe he's going to break Errol Spence. Bud Crawford. Bud Crawford said that if anybody's going to get broke, it's going to be him. So let's just see what happens, okay? That's it. Again, I can pick a fighter in a fight. I don't have to go with both sides, okay? I could point out the negatives and the positives of both fighters. And I've watched it, okay? I see flaws. Listen, there's chinks in everybody's armor, mine's included. Anybody could be beat. Anybody could be stopped. The great Floyd Mayweather had chinks in his armor, right? A lot of times they just didn't get exposed, but there were times that it did. Castillo tested him. Zab Judah tested him. And Shane Mosley tested him. Emmanuel Augustus tested him. De La Hoya tested him to a degree. He got tested. DeMarcus Corley, Chop tested him. Listen, man, it is what it is. But we're not going to go crazy because a channel or somebody is saying this could happen or that could happen, and maybe this is the toughest fight for this fighter, okay? So that's all I'm going to say about that, man. Peace and blessings. In this corner, Boxing 24. I'm just looking for a good fight, and I hope you are too. All right, on July 29th, between Bud Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. Peace and blessings, y'all.